let's see. Can we talk about books like this? All right, all right, all right. It is officially May. In my opinion, that's the best month of the year. Someone may or may not have a golden birthday this year in the month of May. Anyways, it's time to do an April reading wrap up. So I'm going to be taking you guys through all 9 books. Who am I? That I read in the month of April, and just kind of giving you my ratings and a little bit of summary in case you might be interested in reading any of them. So to start the month off, we started strong with Stranger Things Have Happened, which is Casey West's release this summer. She does a lot of romances. I think she has some like YA romances from back when I was a teenager, and now this is an adult romance. It's a little bit spicy. Is it? Yeah, I think it is. I don't remember super well, but I gave it 5 stars. And the premise of this book is you have a girl who doesn't usually come home. She has a rough family past and she's from a small town, but she's home right now to help her mom post op, recovering from an injury. And while she's home, she reconnects with a best friend, and she also simultaneously gets dumped by her long term boyfriend back in the city where she's from. She is out at night with this best friend, total accident running into these people, and finds out that her friend is engaged. Now, they were high school besties, they have not kept up. So, she feels a little bit guilty about that, but she's also kind of getting red flags from the fiance. Oh, I just like had a flash of what happens at the end of the book. Anyways, the fiance and his brother are sitting at the bar, and the main character overhears this conversation between them about therapy and how it's just BS, right? Not worth it, not at all. And then she finds out like her friend is wanting her and her fiance to go to therapy, and that's the guy who's like, "No, I'm not doing that." And so eventually a bet is made that a counselor couldn't actually help any relationship, because a counselor probably couldn't even tell if it's a serious, legit relationship or if 2 strangers that just met walked in for marriage counseling. Sutton and the fiance's brother, Elijah, end up in this bet, and there's stakes on both sides. But ultimately, she's doing this for her bestie, try to make up for all the years that she's been out of contact. She and the brother, Elijah, are going to be seeing a counselor for premarital counseling. And if the counselor doesn't find out within the first 3 sessions, or like kind of guess that the 2 people in front of her have actually never talked before the counseling session or before the night at the bar before the counseling session, then therapy truly is useless. And the bestie and the fiance won't go to therapy. However, if the counselor calls the bluff, that means it's legit and they will go to counseling. So it's a little bit of a kind of an interesting situation. You know, this is a unique creative idea. Stranger Things Have Happened is the title, and you see the little play on words there because these 2 people are strangers. You get to learn a little bit more about their background and their time growing up here and how they did not know each other before this all happened. And you see what happens in counseling when they are given homework and are trying to keep up the facade of not knowing each other, but in reality, they kind of are getting to know each other. I loved this book. As you can tell, I gave it 5 stars, and I could talk about it for a long time. But if you haven't read it, you should give it a try. The next book I read this month was for a reading vlog where I read books about books. I read The Mysterious Case of the Missing Crime Writer. And this was a little, I don't know if it's technically a novella. It was about 5.5, 6 hours on audiobook, and it's a translated work from Iceland. I still don't know if it's actually translated. I know that the author is Icelandic and he translates books from English to Icelandic. So he may or may not have translated his own book or just written it in English. I know he knows both languages, and I know he typically, like, native tongue is Icelandic, but I don't know what this book was originally written in. Anyways, it was great. I actually really enjoyed it. And for such a short book, it had so many twists and turns. Basically, we are following a detective who lives in Iceland. Surprise, surprise. And he is out of town helping his mom when he gets a call about a super popular crime writer who's been out of the publishing scene for a little bit, has gone missing. And he's put on the case to figure out what happened to her. There's a lot of hidden backstory that he's uncovering, while there's also things going on in his personal life. And I thought it was super interesting just kind of seeing into this little world. It's a different culture a little bit, and just like he's solving a crime about someone who writes crimes, and he loves crime novels. So he's taking inspiration from all these books that he loves to read. There's also really cool in the audiobook experience, little bits of interviews put in. And I love listening to audiobooks that have podcasts or like interviews recorded, and they just like add that kind of graphic audio level where it makes it a completely different experience from reading with your eyeballs. But you hear like the cassette click on and you hear the two different voices being interviewed and you hear the pauses and the tension in the conversations, and I thought that was spectacular. So I would highly recommend checking out, let me try to pronounce the name, Jonathan Ragnar, and his book, The Mysterious Case of the Missing Crime Writer. After that, a book that pretty much everyone has been reading this spring, I read Project Hail Mary. I did give it 5 stars. I enjoyed it. I think it didn't have like the 6 star sparkle quite, but it was just a solid book. And I did the audiobook. Spoiler alert, there were no physical books this month. I did not have time. But it was a fabulous audiobook experience. I've seen so many people who they are not really into science and they didn't know what was going on, and then reading the book, they're like just trying to process the words that are coming in, and the words are about things that they don't understand. So it's really hard to understand words. Guess what? When you listen to it in an audiobook, it all just kind of la 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 la. You can kind of zone out and you just hear the voice and you get the gist of what's happening without actually having to make your brain try to process the words. I thought it was funny. Also, like the delivery of humor was really well done in the audiobook, and Rocky's voice and like just the interaction between the characters was so good. So I gave that 5 stars, and I did go see the movie, which I also thought was spectacular. I would highly recommend both of those for the experience. After Project Hail Mary, I went back to the books about books, and I read The Literati by Susan Cole. I ended up only giving this one 2 stars. It took me a really long time to get through for not that long of a book, but it's kind of just one of those books where everything falls apart. And I kept waiting for things to get better. I also kept waiting for like a side plot of romance because so many male characters were introduced and just nothing happened with that. I don't know why I thought going into it like there was a subplot of romance. I was disappointed on that front, and then I was also like just not really in a place mentally, emotionally, where I could withstand reading about things falling apart. That was why I gave it 2 stars. But I do think that it has some merits, and I do think it's an interesting story. And just like for a fun, if you're not somebody who takes stories really seriously and like to heart, like an empath like me, you could probably enjoy this book without it affecting your mental state. It's not that deep. It really is so silly and out of proportion. I just took on the stress of the main character. But you're reading about Clemmy, and she is a 26-year-old aspiring, well, she just wants to do stuff with books. I forget, like, I don't know the book world enough to know what exactly type of job she's trying to get, but she is with a new literary foundation in Washington, D.C., and she just started this job. And like 2 days in or 2 weeks, like, she literally just started this. Things start falling apart. People go missing, and she can't get a hold of any of her bosses. And it also happens to be the week of this big fundraiser gala. So she is trying to keep things together, hide the fact that things are falling apart. Suddenly there's legal issues. Suddenly there's no bank account monies for her to pay for everything that's going on, and the like star of the show that's supposed to be coming, the guest of honor, is having troubles, and it's just so messy. It is a lot of mess. But she's figuring things out and she's working her life. She's a people pleaser, so she really doesn't want to get anyone in trouble, even if they like maybe should be getting in trouble. And so it's just funny watching her go through all of that. Except for me, it wasn't funny because I was stressed out right there with her. If you enjoy being stressed out by books you're reading, like I would highly recommend this one actually. And it probably would not have anything to do with your actual current life because some of the situations they're just so far out there. Like, it's not real life stress. It has a time and a place, I think. After that, I needed a break from the books about books, and so I went for a cutesy little romance, and I read No Place Like You by Gillian Meadows. And this book was just something to try to get me out of the slump I was in after the literati, and it did its job. I gave it 3 stars. You're reading about a little small town romance where you have the girl. Can I remember the name without looking at the synopsis? This is the issue with reading 9 books a month, y'all. So many female main character names. Oh, no way. So the book I read most recently, the main character's name is Fern, and this one, the town is called Fern River. Anyways, we're reading about Fable Oaks. How can I forget a name like that? And she lives in Fern Rivers, but that was never really her plan. This is kind of like just where all of her backup plans have led her to. She's living in her grandfather's A-frame. He passed away a couple years ago, and this place is kind of dilapidated. It's fallen apart. It's got lots of issues, but she is so scared to admit that she's struggling because every time she does that, like, she just hates asking for help and like watching everyone come pick up the pieces of her life. So she's trying to keep it all together. She's working a job she doesn't really care about, but she's making things work. She runs into her old high school nemesis, but before that, they were childhood best friends, and they kind of make a deal. He needs to prove to his boss that he's settled down, that he's here for good. Even though he ran away after some childhood trauma, he's back and he wants to stay and he wants to take ownership in the clinic that he works at as a vet. He wants to be able to have the opportunity to buy this clinic in with his coworker and continue working there. However, he needs to earn the trust of his boss and just kind of prove that he's around for good, and that he cares about the community. So he thinks a fabulous way to prove this would be following through on the lie he may have sort of accidentally led his boss to believe that he and Fable are dating. She needs help fixing the house. And so she says, yeah, this can be kind of transactional. However, this childhood best friends to rivals, now to friends fake dating. You know what happens, And it was good. It was so good. It is a spicier book. I don't know exactly. I would give spice ratings, but I would say this one is open door and there are multiple scenes. I don't know how many chili peppers that equates to on a spice scale. Anyways, I give it 3 stars. The average rating on Goodreads is 4 stars. So I think it's also a newer book, and I think it's worth giving a try if that sounds like your type of thing. Next up, we read The Midnight Library. This is how I closed out the book about book reading vlog, and this one kind of redeemed whatever happened with the literati. I knew that this one started out in a dark place, and I was like, oh, this might not be good because I'm already stressed. And I was going to say depressed, but I don't take that lightly. I was already stressed and down about life, and so I thought maybe starting a book where the whole premise is a woman trying to take her own life was not the best idea. However, guys, I ended up giving this 4 stars. No, 4.5 stars. I think that it is just such a beautiful story of learning to move past your regrets and live with the life you're living now, because in dwelling on your regrets and in dwelling on the decisions you could have made in the past, you're like ignoring your opportunity to change the path that you're going on, the path you are still on. And you have those opportunities in the moment where you are living, and what you decide to dwell on, what you decide to do with that opportunity is going to affect how you wake up tomorrow and where you wake up a year from now. And so I just thought it was really inspiring. I loved the story, and even though it was a dark start, it definitely gave a lot of hope and just kind of cool perspective. So I would recommend The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. If you haven't heard of it, you may be living under a rock just a little bit, but if you're new to like booktube, book talk, like it's understandable. I won't hold it against you. Just give it a try. After I finished The Midnight Library, I decided it's time to get into some summer romance. Like, I know I already mentioned a couple of those books earlier in the month, but it was time to dive in. I was talking to my best friend from high school, and she was telling me about an Allie Hazelwood book she read, and she's like, it's so good. And I was like, yeah, it might be. And then she's like, and I really want to read Carly Fortune. I was like, oh, me too. And I just put so many holds in on Libby all at once. I used up all my holds on some summer romances, and it did not disappoint. I read Problematic Summer Romance and gave it 4 stars. That's a book by Allie Hazelwood, and it is an age gap trope. However, it's Italian, it's summer, it's vacation, it's brother's best friend. There are so many good aspects to it. And also like the guys are really I don't know how to I was like a fan of it, except for like it was a bigger age gap, but I think it was well done in a way where you weren't really icked out about it if you didn't think about it too hard. Honestly, if you did think about it too hard, it wasn't really icky, unless age gap in general is icky. I don't know. I'll let you be the judge of that. I had avoided reading it because of the age gap, and I still gave it 4 stars when I got around to reading it. So I would recommend. It is a little bit spicy. Just be aware. If you want the full lowdown on these books, through the end of the month were all summer romances. They're all in my summer romance reading vlog, which I think will be out a week after this video. So stay tuned if you want like the deep dive kind of synopsis, or just look them up on Goodreads if you can't wait. I wouldn't blame you. Next up, I read This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. This takes place mostly on Prince Edward Island in Canada, and a little bit in Toronto too. There's like a back and forth, but it is really cool how it goes through multiple years. It is dual timelines. You have the present day, and then you also have flashbacks to summers of the past. And please, my one thing that I will tell you if you plan on reading this, don't read the synopsis. Okay. It'll make the prologue so much better if you forget what's going on going into it. That happened to me, and like I finished the prologue and when the prologue hits like that, it's gonna be a good book. I ended up giving it 4.3 stars. And this was my first Carly Fortune after I read One Golden Summer last year and gave it 5 stars. And before that, I had thought I did not like Carly Fortune just because I read Every Summer After, and there's an icky trope that I can't stand in there. And so I have been avoiding Carly Fortune this whole time, only to find last year I give One Golden Summer a 5 star, and then this one a 4.3 star. And I'm like, dang, I've been missing out. So I actually, the first book I read in the month of May was another one of the books from her backlog. And again, it was so good. I will not be skipping Carly Fortune in the future. Last of the month, was that 9? Was that really 9? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the last book of the month was No Matter What by Cara Bastone. And I gave this 3.5 stars. I feel like, I don't know, it's been creeping up in my ratings since I stopped reading it. And I think that's just because it is so different. I haven't read a lot of romance books that are about people already married. You know, it kind of like skips the whole part of falling in love, and that's the exciting part and whatnot. I don't know. But this one was really well done. And talks about a couple going through a hard time. Something happened about a year ago from where you're placed and dropped into this book. They're just trying to get through it, but they haven't been on the same page for most of it. And it's really just like a lot of miscommunication, but in a way that I feel like, due to the situation, pretty realistic and easy to understand. And it's also just really enjoyable to watch them fall back in love with each other and remember like why they committed to spend their life with this person. So I enjoyed it and I thought it was good and just a unique kind of different romance where it's not the young love fallen from day one type of thing, but it's a falling back in love story. And I thought that was cool. Those were all of the books I read this month. I have ambitious goals. As we move into summer, I truly like just plow through the summery books. Stay tuned for some more. I know this month is going to be good. We already started off strong with another Color of Fortune, and I have at least 3 new releases in my lineup that I could start any day now. If I lose my self control and don't stick to my TBR, those things might take over my entire world for a few days while I listen to the audiobook. So, can you tell I'm excited? I love summer. I love the books that come out in summer. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys go because I gotta go and fold a whole bunch of laundry. Have a fabulous month of May. Let's celebrate